safe to say that Christopher Walken has played in some good films like King of New York and In the Dead Zone, but the one film we will be talking about today from 1980 called The Dogs of War is not on a list of films with Christopher Walken involved that's ever worth mentioning. It is important to state my reasons for that opinion, and if we start with my first reason, the first problem with it is that there's only one good part of the film. That is the part during the beginning when our main character, played by Christopher Walken, is sent on a mission to this fake African country called Zangaroo to do a recon mission, mainly to scout the possibility of a coup. That's when you see the most exciting part of the movie, when he is snooping around, when he is tortured and almost not allowed to leave the country. No other part of the movie comes close to ever replicating that mystery and tension in the beginning, when you are involved in figuring out what this country's problem really is. Generally, another problem with the film is a lack of tension and action. Apart from that mentioned part during the beginning, there's very little of that. Of course, you have got some action scenes towards the end where they manage to overthrow the government that are somewhat exciting, but generally during that planning back in London and such, and with the ship that they are using to transport weapons, it is just not as easy to get immersed into a story that takes too much of a slowdown. In this part, the main character also tries to reconnect with his former love interest, and the story takes on too much of a romance profile. It simply gets too emotional, as the only female character in this one is not on board with a plan from the main character that wants her back and wants to run away and start a new life with her. Another thing is that when we mention the characters, this devious guy that gives the main character the mission may be quite good, but generally you feel that a lot of the characters are not entertaining enough. Because in a movie like this that relies on intrigues and power dynamics between countries and people, you simply need better characters, and that's what this film cannot provide to a full extent. The little bit of interesting moments that happens in the second part is mostly only that one of the companions of the main character is killed by this devious villain that really has other interests to make this African country into his own little playground. It should really have been way more story in Zangaroo instead, but then of course it had to be a very different movie. But if you had ditched the planning part in the second part and moved the actual action in Zangaroo in a little earlier, or simply just had most of the story in Zangaroo, it could have been a way better film. But sadly, it wasn't. It is safe to say it is very mediocre, and I will give it a 5 out of 10.